Hello and welcome to episode 32 of Off the Bandstand. My name is Christian Wiggs. I am your host. Today's episode is Ron Wilkins, a perfect example of someone who can be a total goofball and also provide wisdom and perspective in the same breath. Ron continues to have an incredibly successful career that has spanned over 4 decades, performing with, such incredibly acclaimed musicians such as Ray Charles, Aretha Franklin, Rosemary Clooney, Lena Horne, Bob Hope, Jerry Lewis, and Dizzy Gillespie, to name quite literally just a few of his impressive colleagues. Ron also has a new record on the way that we talk a little bit about, which is called Ron Wilkins Trom-vocalist, that highlights his proficiency not only as a trombonist and frankly all things low brass for that point, but also as a finely tuned singer as well. So let's dive in. In this episode, we talk about jazz being the universal language of the shared experience. We also talk about the legacy of musicians like Jon Hendricks and a wedding gig from hell that makes shotgun weddings look like a walk in the park. So moving on to our releases of the week. Of course, this band, you've heard the name several times at this point on the show, which is the 8-Bit Big Band. Their second album called Choose Your Character came out in 2019. And I didn't know this before, but Ron is actually a musician that plays on not only that record, but also their third one, Backwards Compatible, that we plugged a few weeks back. I said this last week about Stephen Feifke, and I'll say it again about Charlie Rosen and all the guys who play an 8-Bit Big Band. What can you say other than the fact that they are going to provide some of the most swinging, exciting, killing charts, in a way that is incredibly nostalgic because it's tied to the subject material of these tunes and these games that we've played from all different decades and all different generations of game consoles. So make sure to go and check that out. If you want to support them directly, you can go to the 8bitbigband.com. And then if you want to check out their music on Bandcamp and support that directly, you can go to the8bitbigband.bandcamp.com. We put it down there because I know that's a lot to remember. So go and support that and support all the things that Charlie Rosen is doing as the band leader and the orchestrator of that group. And then the next release of the week that I want to plug is someone who has been very near and dear over the course of the pandemic. I have considered it such an honor to be getting to know her and to have the ability to talk to her and bounce ideas off of. From Carmen Bradford, she has a record that came out, I believe, in 2004 that is called Home With You. This is a duo record of piano and voice with Shelley Berg, the celebrated jazz pianist Shelley Berg, and really just shows the intimacy but also the swinging nature and her scatting ability of the two of them just coming together, making a really, really special record. If you want to support that directly, you can go over to carmenbradford.com and learn more about Carmen there. And then also, if you want to just go on the streaming platforms as well, that's one of her records that is available on Spotify, Apple Music, all of the different platforms as well. And if you want to get a physical copy, she may have some available. I haven't checked with her, but you can go over to the contact form again at carmenbradford.com. So also a website we want to make sure to plug is ronwilkins.net. That's Ron's website where you can go and support all of the things that he's doing directly and find out all the different things he's done throughout his career. But now moving on to the Monk shows that we plug every week. Of course, tonight is going to be the Adrian Ruiz Quintet. That is Thursday, February 11th. Adrian is just, I feel like I was going to say this to somebody the other day. He's just kind of the loving uncle of the jazz scene. He feels like such an encouraging, such a sweetheart of a human being, and not seems like, he just is. And so I make sure to go and support everything that Adrian's doing, and I would implore you to do the same. He is just such a kind-hearted fella and has incredible chops as well. So tune into that show and donate if you can. We're still waiting to hear on what next Tuesday's Austin Jazz Society Project Safety Net show is going to be, so we'll keep you updated with that. We'll make sure to post it on our social media. But next Thursday, we're going to have Mike Saylors and his quintet. That is February 18th. Thursday. These are all at 7:30 p.m. Mike Saylors is just ridiculous. Talk about somebody who has played with all of the main cats because of the fact that his chops are just out of this world. You got 2 really amazing trumpet players playing 2 shows within the next week at Monk's. You gotta tune into it. You just gotta. It's gonna be amazing. support Monks and Austin Jazz Society and Project Safety Net and all these records in any way that you can. It's all very much appreciated and worthy of your time and donations if you can. Also, keep an eye out for a very special announcement coming soon. I'll post it on Off the Bandstand's Instagram, but also on my personal one as well, at Christian Wiggs. We might have a new single coming for you. So anyways, let's dive into today's episode. Here is episode 32, Ron Wilkins, Trom-vocalist. This is Off the Bandstand.
Royale, everybody thought that was like an iconic bottle shape, and not to mention a ton of brass cats I know, mostly trumpet players, would go ahead and keep the bag. You know, the blue. With the those Crown Royale bags, because that was either a mute bag or they'd actually put it over their bell and such, because it's like, oh man, this thing gets the smoothest sound like Crown Royale. I'm like, Crown Royale sucks. Shut up. If they made a Crown Royale size that was big enough for the bag that would fit over a trombone bell,
right?
Okay, I could try it.
Yeah,
I could try it. But I've been down that road. I've never been a big drinker. I mean, you know, but I've gotten to the point now at this stage of life where, like, there are certain ones I like. I still remain open-minded. In fact, one of the new songs coming out on one of the songs coming out on the new album this spring is "Gimme That Wine," the Vocalese by Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross. You know, and it's pretty much talking about the sad yet hip tale of a cat who can't get enough of the grape, to the point where he loses, like, you know, relationship, home, gets beat up, you know, all this stuff. But, you know, beat my head out of shape, but leave my grape. You know, I mean, it's a funny, whimsical song in that sense. But in another way, it's like when I was recording this, I'm like, man, I like this song so much. But you know what? There's kind of some dark overtones in this shit.
Oh, well, dude, man. I mean, I think you're describing a lot of the jazz idiom in general, man. There's like some super, super hip tunes, but there is just, I mean.
Well, you know, I mean, the roots of it, you know, when you look at the roots of jazz, it comes from the blues.
Yeah.
And the blues were pretty much, in essence, songs that were sung by an oppressed and created by an oppressed and enslaved people over hundreds of, if not thousands of years.
Right.
You know, I'm sure that the Israelites were singing the blues when they're dealing with the Pharaoh and shit. You know?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, you know, of course, you know, Dutch slavers come over to the coast of Africa, and you know, those cats are being torn away from their homes and such, their lives, and then, you know, treated as pretty much just carrion, you know, as merchandise.
Yeah.
I mean, that's some pretty fucked up shit.
Yeah.
And you know, to even perpetuate that kind of thought into why we still have issues like that in this country, at times it's just mind-boggling, because it's all based upon hate and ignorance. It's just fear.
Right.
It's just fear, you know. Let's all remember what FDR said. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. So, I mean, that's what it comes down to. But there's still a lot of fearful people out there. And it's not just in matter of racism. It's about fear of losing an election by illegal means, no matter how illegal you yourself try to make it.
Right.
Or, you know, for a lot of folks, fear of being able to feed their kids, fear of going outside and dealing with life when, you know, you've got a pandemic that's killing hundreds of thousands of people around the world. You know, we don't want to talk about America's numbers on that. I mean, it really does come down to perception.
Yeah.
And in the case of jazz, with the roots in the blues and such, yeah, man, there's some darkness that comes out of it, but out of darkness also comes light.
For sure.
Because, you know, you could go ahead and listen to, like, as of late, one of the things I was checking out on Netflix was the Ma Rainey's Black Bottom.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, there's some dark overtones in that as well, not only of racism, but of classism, among other things. But the music at times was so joyful. And when they finally hit all together and actually nailed the tune, even with Ma Rainey's nephew there, who finally got his line together.
Yeah, right.
You know, there's like the passion, the joy of being able to connect like that.
Yeah.
Not just as a group of people coming together as an ensemble, but to bring forth an experience, to bring that emotion and that character out into the music. Man, there's power, there's passion, there's joy, there's magic. You know, there's the essence of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, what it comes down to though is that we can find shared experiences in the down times as well as in the happy times, and the music that comes through jazz and the forms of jazz still relates that. It all still relates to our human experience.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't know how many cats I know who are out of, like, you know, among other places, Austin or San Antonio or Chicago or LA or New York, who are all feeling the blues. And there's a lot of creativity going on online with a lot of musicians who are trying to still find ways to come together, whether they're doing it remotely or whether they're able to go ahead and do it within their own pod. You know, but, you know, jazz musicians in particular, we've been working with like pods for years. They're called duos, trios, quartets, quintets.
Yeah.
You get a big band, that's 17 people in a pod. Oh, it's an orchestra, that's 45. Okay,
Right.
now I'm concerned. You dig? I mean, to me, it's like, you know, we have these shared experiences now. There's out of darkness comes light, and sometimes we lose the light and we find ourselves in the dark. So we have to be able to go ahead and do our best to be positive and to develop and maintain balance.
For sure.
That's been my battle cry throughout this whole ordeal of what was happening here with the start of COVID last year, that we found out more about, you know, and everything that went on from last year into now where we're at. And I honestly feel like, man, I am very, 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 very fortunate to have come through it as well as I did. Just, you know, got my second vaccine shot now, and it's supposedly about 10 days. I believe it's like you wait 10 days after the second shot, and then by that time your body has adjusted and adapted to the vaccine to the point where you then have the immunity.
Right.
And not to say that you can't get COVID again, but the thing is that your body can fight it.
Right.
To the point now where it's like it's not that big a deal. It's like what we got with the flu shot now.
Sure.
You know, for the most part, people who get the flu shots, if they get the flu, it's not as bad, or they might not even get it, or if they have it, they don't really notice it. We'll see the same thing like that with COVID as vaccines continue to improve, because, you know, the virus is continuing to mutate.
Yeah. Man, I want to ask you specifically about, not to back up, but man,
Back way.
I love that you talked about it being the music of the shared experience, because I feel like very specifically jazz is the like hallmark music of the shared experience. And that's not to put down any other like genre of music, because obviously everyone can express themselves, you know, maybe some more than others in every genre of music. But I feel like jazz is such a, and this is a young cat talking to somebody who knows a whole lot more than me, so feel free to correct me at any point. But
Okay, whippersnapper. I'm on you. Hey, go ahead.
Right. But I feel like, man, like jazz is such an umbrella that lots of people don't even realize, is that there's so many different subgenres of jazz and different ways to express yourself, and it can encompass so many different specific styles and colors and vibes. So in that way, I feel like it's the most suitable for the most diverse sides of the shared experience, right? Yeah. Where it's not like, you know, and again, not to like put down like country music or something like that, but I feel like that with your audience is a little bit more pigeonholed maybe towards a certain type of struggle. Again, I don't want to pigeonhole it in one way, but I do feel like in jazz, because there is there's the blues, there's swing, there's bebop, there's, free jazz, there's atonal, there are all these different things that we can dial in that maybe speak to a wider variety of people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Jazz to me, and I've heard this said from so many greats who I've had the pleasure of working with as well as just hanging out with. Jazz is the people's music. It experiences the greatest freedom because of improvisation. Because the shared musical experience is the shared human experience, and that we can all come from different places, but at times we find our commonality is what allows us to be able to express ourselves in different ways, and yet we still have a common bond. And you see this in jazz music. If you play jazz and you're doing a tune like at a jam session and someone says, hey man, let's do blues in F. And it's like, oh, okay, which one? Oh, bird blues. No, how about we go ahead and do this blues or that blues? It's still a blues.
Right.
It's still basically a 12 measure format, 12 bar format based upon 3 chords, 1 chord, 4 chord, and 5 chord.
Right.
And that's it, and if you want to go into different phases of it and such, or do it a different way and call it the blues, more power to you. I myself, being a guy who's actually studied this stuff, and I'm a bit of a historian, and more so, I'm more of a student still of it. I think that's the best way I can put it. I still study this stuff.
Yeah.
I still read up on this stuff. I mean, not only when I'm teaching it with the students at Texas State, or whether I've been working with other students around the country or the globe, I'm a student of this. Every time I get into someone else who I'm working with, I have a gentleman now who contacted me from out of Japan who wants to work on his jazz singing and work on scat and rhythms, because he also wants to try and incorporate that and some of the other things that he's listened to off of hip hop or R&B or rap. I'm like, sure. I can trace those histories. I can show you how they all come together, and I can show you rhythms and styles of how to do that. But it's taking the approach. If you're looking at it from a jazz standpoint, I can really help you on that end. If you're looking at it just from a musicology standpoint, I can give you insights, but I can also point you in different directions, like to other cats who can actually give you more of what you might look for.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
But it's once again shared experience. Shared experience, people's music. All of a sudden, it's like, hey, this is like, I want to learn this stuff. It's amazing how, to me, this export that we have sent out from America has become even more popular around the world than still now in America.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched the Super Bowl this past weekend, and I enjoyed it for what it was worth. I was rooting for Kansas City because I like Patrick Mahomes. He's a Texas guy out of Texas Tech. I won't do the hand sign and such because, honestly, I was a mean green eagle out of North Texas. So,
Sure.
But I'm also a Bobcat now, courtesy of the master's degree, and before that, a road runner, and there's all sorts of hand signs and such.
Yeah, right.
As far as the symbols go. But to me, I'm trying to remember my points. It's been a long day of teaching.
No, you're fine. Well, we were talking about just like knowing all the material elements up until this point that we have to do stuff.
Sure. And I mean, I take nothing away from any other person's version of music, whether they listen to country and western, whether they listen to rap, hip hop, trip hop, metal. Like last night I'm watching Colbert and Metallica's on doing Enter Sandman, and I'm like rocking my butt off.
Yeah.
I love Metallica. We can all find shared experiences in any type of music, but jazz is so unique because with so many other types of music out there, you can create and you can establish a particular form or pattern and such based upon the music itself. In jazz, there's always that side of it that's improvisation.
Right.
And that's what's so unique because everybody does it differently. I've had people come and say, I could never do jazz. Why? I was like, well, the improvisation. It's like when you hold a conversation with someone and you have the knowledge of how to be able to take letters of the alphabet and form words, sentences, phrases, grammatically or otherwise.
Right.
And then you hold this conversation with someone and you're trying to think of what to say ahead of time and something might come out the way you want it to and other times not. You're improvising.
Right.
It's improvisation. And we say it in jazz the same way. We take the elements, the two major elements of jazz, which are the rhythm and the melody. With the melody itself, there's a structure that comes with that melody off of the harmony.
Mm.
From the harmony, it can based upon any particular form of it, but the rhythm is the key element that makes all of it come together again.
Yeah.
And that's what makes jazz so unique. So when you improvise jazz, there's this element of improvising within the form or element of that rhythm that you have based upon the tune you've done or created, and then utilizing a melodic line that you can then improvise from.
Right.
And you know, it's just like, you know, little babies learning to walk, talk, breathe, make sounds. They
Yeah.
hear mommy and daddy say things certainly, and then imitate them. As they get a little older, they might hear somebody like a relative all of a sudden use a term or a word or even cuss for a moment, and then they try to pick that up because they see a reaction.
Right. Sure.
You know, it's the same thing with jazz. When you got guys who are sitting there and they're listening and they're checking out all these different artists and such, if you're a saxophonist, you're checking out Dexter Gordon, Charlie Parker, Sonny Rollins, Coleman Hawkins, you know.
Yeah.
There's just the list of thousands and thousands. Of course, John Coltrane, Omni Daruth, gone John Coltrane. And it's just, to me, it's like you hear that stuff and then they try to figure out what they're doing. And then you transcribe it and you see what they're doing. And then you try to figure out how to play it first in the way that they did it. And then along the lines, you start coming off of the way that they did it because you're developing your own way of expressing it.
Right.
You know, same things, man.
That's
It's human experience.
that's a really good point. I will have students sometimes that say, you know, okay, well, how much of it do I need to come into the musical conversation with something already like predetermined, and how much of it should I try to just like hear in the moment? And I think that really just depends, A, on what's happening in the vibe of the group, and B, how far along you are. Because just like the analogy of making a conversation, right? You don't want to have something that's terribly scripted, or else the conversation does not feel genuine. But at the same time, you don't want to not have an idea of what you want to say or what to talk about. I mean, sure, that's also great. Like,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of these conversations, the off the bandstand stuff, I might have some things that I want to ask about at some certain point. But just like this, the way that we started, I like that it was just, we started talking about whiskey, and then now we're to the integrity of a conversation via improvisation. So I think that, yeah, it's great to have those things to start out with, but ultimately you can't approach every conversation with the same 4 sentences or the same 4 licks. You have to be uniquely tuned into what's going on in the moment.
Yeah, I agree. The other part of it too is that the whole thing that comes back around again to the shared experience of it, and that is when you're a baby and you're learning how to be able to do certain things, you follow by example. You watch. You know, your parents might pick you up and have you try to do little teetering, tottering steps, but after a few months, all of a sudden you get up on your own and go, "Hey, look at this," and everyone freaks out. You know, then next thing you know, you're walking, talking, stumbling, bumbling. Then you're able to go ahead and hop around, crawl a little bit. The next thing you know, you're up and walking regularly. And the next thing you know, you're running. Next thing you know, you're starting to run, and you might run better, worse, strangely, whatever. But you're running. You're moving. Same thing here with us. I mean, when you're learning a language, one of the best ways to learn the language is first to listen to it and to hear how it sounds, to get a sense of it in your ear. It's like with jazz, when you're listening to the music, who do you listen to? Well, there's a ton of cats that you can check out. Sometimes you might pick up on something that you hear someone else do that you really like, and you're trying to figure out how to do it. Other times you might hear something that someone does, and you're wondering, that's not jazz. That sounds like, 2 bricks being hit together.
Sure.
For lack of a better analogy or a worse analogy.
Yeah.
And it's still affects you to a point. One person's version of swing is another person's version of hip hop, is another person's version of chill hop, it's another person's version of acid jazz, it's another person's version of jazz fusion based upon Miles Davis and Bitches Brew from the 1960s, which is then another person's version of A Love Supreme by John Coltrane, which is another person's version of Miles Davis's Kind of Blue, which evolved into Bitches Brew, which evolved into Live Evil, which,
Yeah.
I mean, I've learned over the years that my sense of hearing, at times, as dialed in as it gets with about certain styles of music and certain eras of it, I've learned that it's important more so to still stay open. It's still important to stay. The other day, you know, all of a sudden I'm listening to a recording I did a while back. It's just a little something on YouTube Live. I play with the Charlie Rosen and his 8-bit big band.
I was just about to talk to you about that, man.
Yeah, that's great stuff. I mean, Charlie's another one of these like genius prodigy cats, man. He's not even 30 yet, and he's already done orchestration for like a half dozen Broadway shows, 2 of which were like up for Emmys.
Tony nominated, yeah.
Tony's,
He's currently up for Tonys, yeah.
Yeah, and this whole big band project was like out of his passion that he and his friends had when they were back in high school or middle school, playing video games.
Right.
And Charlie's case, as a musical genius that he is, he picked up on this stuff and was able to work out the arrangements. And then next he gets together the cats because he's got the connections and such. And here I am sitting here with a bunch of other cats wearing my OG Nintendo Atari T-shirt, you know, or something like that. The cats here, and we're playing like, you know, themes from Zelda, themes from, oh my gosh, it's just
Super Mario, Portal.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, not to mention the appreciation for that level of music. Koji Kondo as a composer, you know, who I read recently. You think the guy would be worth like $1 billion or something like that? He's not that rich.
Yeah.
But he's a genius in the writing and orchestration of these repertoire, which is probably going to become like the new standard.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, these days, or back in the 1920s, 30s, and say, where you had places like Tin Pan Alley where guys were cranking out charts here and there, and then some of these things would try to hit and stick on like Broadway or become popular songs and such. And then next thing you know, you've got all these other guys who are listening to this music and they're trying to figure out how to do the same thing, but then they find out they can't do that same thing, so they can try and do something similar to it.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, like I had Charlie on this. I guess his episode was like maybe 6 or 7 episodes ago. But we were talking about how there's that, how it is kind of becoming this new. I don't want to either minimalize it or pigeonhole it into this same kind of thing, but it is kind of becoming this new like Great American Songbook almost, in the sense that Great American Songbook, a lot of those tunes were rooted in Golden Age musical theater, and people had a vivid association with it. So even if they were going and listening to a jazz show and they weren't seeing the production being, you know, Guys and Dolls, Hello Dolly, whatever, being performed in front of them, they had that association because it's the same music. Whereas now people don't have to be playing the video games. They can go and see the 8-bit big band, and they have this like visceral, very nostalgic feeling that makes them so much more invested in the music because it means something to them personally.
Absolutely. I mean, it's shared, once again, shared experience. Shared experience. We're all part of the same whole. It's like, oh man, you know, I play some video games. I enjoy a few. As of late, I've been just, you know, looking in on a few things. In particular, the last time I actually was involved with playing anything was about 1.5 years ago, and that was RDR2.
What's your flavor?
Oh man, I got a PS4.
Okay. What's your flavor as far as games?
Last one I was playing was let's see. I got NBA 2019.
Okay.
So
more sports stuff?
Yeah, I like the sports stuff. I tried some time with Grand Theft Auto for a while, and it was just stupid bang shoot 'em up. Like,
sure,
how many things can we blow up in the process of trying to get away with this latest heist?
Right. Yeah.
You know, not to mention going through different radio stations in your wheels and checking out all the commentary that goes with it. Yeah. I mean, it's like this whole open world role gameplay stuff. The last one I really enjoyed, honestly, and I didn't get to play it yet, but my partner was playing on it and having some fun, was Ghost of Tsushima.
Okay.
That's an amazing open world game.
I feel like everyone at some point, usually it's earlier, like in adolescence, and then like in you know, college years, and then like right after, when people are really getting into like Grand Theft Auto and stuff like Saints Row, stuff like that,
Yeah.
And I'm curious why you think that there's such an attraction to games like that. And this isn't like going down the rabbit hole on this, it's more of a small tangent, but like, I almost feel like we love those games because of the idea that there's seemingly like limitless autonomy to do whatever we want to do with no consequences. And then after a certain while of it, then once we get all of the, it's like eating cake for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We play it for a couple hours, and then we go, ugh, it doesn't feel good getting everything I wanted, you know, especially using like cheat codes and stuff.
Well, yeah, of course. But the thing also is that nowadays, with the level of technology and the minds behind it, and as well as the people who are able to go ahead and figure out how to develop cheat codes, and work out, because I mean, last time I was playing RDR2, I'm going on cheat codes myself just to make sure I got figured out how to get out of Saint Denis once again,
right,
without getting shot into like cheesecloth.
Sure.
100th time.
Yeah.
I gotta admit though, man, it's like there's the whole thing that impresses me these days too with stuff like that is just the overall development of the characters and how much more it's gotten to the point, including with use of CGI. It's just how crazy the coding is now, to where you got these characters that look so much more lifelike. It looks like a movie.
Right.
I mean, even on my iPhone, I've got an 11 Pro now, and I'm playing this one game on here, Ocean Quest, I believe, and it's just sick. Not only the graphics and the detail on it, but the story. It's just it's phenomenal. I could go through all of this stuff. Ocean Horn 2.
Yeah.
I haven't played it in about a week and a half, so I'm like sitting here going, okay, I just started this thing. I should at least finish it.
Sure.
But you know, now it's just trying to figure out how to do this with everything else I've got going on. Because the cool thing is that as of late, I've been doing some more recording, working with some folks, doing some video game tracks.
Cool.
Charlie, I did one for Charlie recently for a latest project coming up. Just recorded about 3 weeks ago and sent that to him.
For the fourth 8-bit thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So that was cool because I was covering, I think, the third and fourth book.
Yeah.
Third and fourth trombone books, and we just played, you know, 1 or 2 tunes on it, or actually 3 tunes. But it was cool. It was cool, and for me, it's because I've got my setup here with the iMac. I got Logic. I've got Final Cut. You know, I've got some nice condensers, a couple of ribbons. You know, the setup, as you can see, it's kind of a little all over the place, but not as much. You know, at least the keyboard's out of the way, so you can see the tuba now. That's a big pig in the back.
For sure.
Yeah, you know. I just like the fact that, going back to this whole thing about video games, what we see now is that, yeah, to a point, there's no consequences because you have all of these open levels that you can play on it.
Right.
But to a point, like you're saying too, after so much of this, after a while, it's like you kind of lose that original feel for it until you want to see the next thing or the next thing or the next thing, and which is also part of the hook.
Right.
How they keep you coming back. Not to mention, I'm not getting a PS5 until maybe late 2020.
Yeah.
You know, by that time they'll have worked out the kinks, and they'll probably have come up with a little bit more of an advanced version of it, and they'll be getting ready to get up the PS6.
And maybe they'll be available.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, the way this whole year went was just insane.
Right.
This past year, I mean, the virus just pretty much slapped everybody in the dick.
Yeah.
You know? And it's not whether you have one or not. It's taking the figurative and looking at it literally. So much death, so much that we weren't prepared for. And I would have hoped that we would have been at least a little bit more heads up about it. You know, not only as a country, but as a world. But, you know, it just goes to show you once again, just when you think you've got things in place and everything's cool and such like that, nope, it's not, because you're in control of you and what you've got to do. Even then, you might not be able to be that much in control of you if something else comes along and kicks your ass.
Right.
You know, so it's just trying to take care of the business of being and the business of still sharing experience. I think that, once again, I go back to that again.
Yeah.
Because we've had to all do that now more than ever, especially because of our situation and what's going on around us. The conditions around us dictate that we do this online now instead of actually hanging out the elephant room and having a drink.
Right.
like before John Blondell gets up and tries to cut us all to ribbons with his sick trombone technique.
And the whiskey that he was having, he just knocks it back, pours out the ice, and then uses that as like a mute on his bone.
Uh, that's another story. I studied with John when I was in high school.
Oh yeah.
When I was a sophomore in high school, John Blondell was my trombone teacher. I wasn't thinking about jazz so much then, even though I liked jazz a lot, and I was trying to figure out my way around it. But you know, I had gone through some classical teachers, and this guy seemed different, and he was. And I liked him, I think, more than anything else because he's not only a pro, but he's, the term is never bullshit a bullshitter.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I learned that from him. You don't bullshit a bullshitter.
Yeah.
You don't. Not that John is so much of a bullshitter. John is John.
Yeah.
I mean, I love him dearly. I will always love him. I respect the hell out of him. I think he's a phenomenal musician, and he's really actually a very endearing cat. You know, but he's also been through a lot of stuff in his life, and he's definitely got an attitude. But that's John.
Sure.
You know, you take John for who and what he is, and to me, it's like I'll always go out and give him a hug. That's, you know, once it's okay to give him hugs again.
Right.
But I can't help but feel a sense of pride that I actually got to study with one of the greats, and I think he still feels that pride because here's one of his cats who is following the footsteps. So I'm carrying the torch, man.
Well, I was about to say, man. I mean, that's gotta feel good, you know, for anybody who's saying that about a mentor, especially because of you, and you've had like a super robust career. I mean, like anyone, like I would have never known it just talking to you, like, because you're just the coolest, most laid back, like friendly person. and yet someone goes to ronwilkins.net, quick plug, everybody, boom, right here. No, someone goes to like your website, and then just it's like just a long list of some of the most like A-list cats that you've been able to play with.
And the truth be told is that, you know, it's all true. It's all true. I live this stuff. It's like there's even more things to it that I probably haven't put in there, because then we're talking about a couple of like 2-ply sheets of toilet paper rolls going, you know?
Yeah, sure.
But it's just, I've lived on all this stuff, and it's crazy looking back on it right now, and yet I'm even more centered and more excitement about the new things I'm working on, the new projects, with the finishing up the new album, getting it out this spring, finishing up a new book of etudes, blues in all 12 keys for bass trombone and tubas if they dare.
Is that going to be your new record?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's called Ron Wilkins, Trom-vocalist.
Okay. Oh man, love it. Man, and bravo too with that. I shared it when you posted on Jam of the Week a bit back, like the Caravan video, like burning on euphonium. Like I don't advertise this. I'm also a trumpet player, but I've messed around on euphonium a bit. Nobody wants to hear that, but I messed around on euphonium a bit, and the idea of playing like super fast bebop lines with those vowels that are slow as can be, like I was just like, holy shit, this is some next level stuff. So I'm really excited to hear that, man. When did you start singing? Like, I should put it this way: when did you start adding vocals onto the bandstand of what you were doing?
You know, I go back real quick. Not necessarily to the very start of it, because I will go a little bit. I'll cover some of it. I started singing in church when I was 5 years old, doing the solo on "What a Friend We Have in Jesus," and everybody thought I was blessed by God. I had a beautiful voice. So he's gonna sing that little Ronnie Wilkins. Sang for you. Sang that song. What a friend we have in Jesus. I'm like, wow, I could be like Michael Jackson. And then my voice broke, and that shit was done. But when I was coming up in high school, and I would hit these jam sessions, I remember growing up in San Antonio, and I hit this jam session at this place called the My Place Restaurant, located on the corner of of Loop 410 West at Blanco Road.
Mm.
And it was like this long time place, but there's this little duo that's in there and that was playing there regularly. The drummer named Kyle Keener,
Yeah.
great jazz singer, incredible vocalist, uh, monster scat singer, and great drummer, just like world class drum chops, man.
Yeah.
Crazy. It's like, damn, how can you do that? It's like but he was a big Mel Torme fan, and Mel Torme was also another one of those guys who could do stuff like that.
Right.
Um, and then the guitarist who's over here playing not a six but a seven-string guitar. For one, I've never seen one of those. I'm like, I didn't realize they had seven.
Was it Polly?
Yeah, Polly Harrison.
Yeah.
But she's also playing this little set of keyboard pedals with her feet. It's like organ bass pedals.
Oh.
So she's playing those while she's throwing down this tune and then doing these slick Jackie Kane and Roy Krull harmonies with Kyle on certain tunes.
Ooh.
And they were running the jam session. So I come in there wanting to do Autumn Leaves and kind of stumbled, bumbled, and embarrassed the hell out of my way through it.
Sure.
But they said, man, you sound great. They were very encouraging and very supportive, and they in turn said, come back anytime. So I did. I came back as often as I could. I started when I was like about 15 or 16 years old.
Oh, okay, cool.
But because of them and their passion for singing, and I knew that I had a voice, I hadn't really done as much with it. In part, it got me back into the whole singing thing, because there was a stretch after my voice broke for a while. It's like, okay, I'm going to play trombone now.
Yeah,
I don't know if
sure,
I can
sure.
sing again. Because my voice is a swing this. So it turned into me figuring out which end of the trombone to blow into, and then using my ears to try and figure out stuff, along with learning to read music and figuring out where the notes are and such. And my ears were much better than my sight reading.
Mm.
The sight reading caught up. It definitely caught up, especially after a couple of years of studying at North Texas State.
Mm.
You better read.
Yeah.
You better read. You better read.
I would almost feel like it's better to have an ear first and sight reading second than the other way around.
Well, yeah, to that point, because the thing is that with music, you're going to always hear it first.
Right.
It's like you don't look at a piece of music and say, oh, that looks phenomenal. I can't believe he wrote that particular thing. No, if you're going to sit there and you listen to Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, then you're going, that's marvelous. There's music to that? Can I see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then bang, there you go. So, I mean, to me, excuse me, the music thing was like, I always had the ears first. And I found out at an early age that I had a voice. I didn't know how to use it until later on when I got into undergraduate school. That one summer I took some extra lessons when I was starting to hone my craft and figure things out. And it's like, I better work on the singing, because I had a friend of mine I was one time driving in the car with. One of my best friends in the world is named Sam Johnson, lives down in San Antonio. Sam and I were in North Texas together. And we're driving along one day, and I'm listening to some Ella and such, or it's like Lou Rawls, or no, it was Eddie Jefferson.
Ooh, yes.
The great jazz master of Vocalese. And he was doing this one tune, and I'd heard it a few times, so I'm starting to sing along with it in the car while we're riding. Yeah. And the more I'm going along and singing along with him, I'm looking over at Sam, and Sam's looking at me like I got three heads. And finally, we stop the car at like a stop, and he hits me on the shoulder. And I'm like, throwing the N-bomb out.
Sure.
What the hell was that shit?
Yeah.
He said, you can sing. Like, what? No, you can sing. He's all freaking out on me. And I'm like, yeah. I told him a little bit of the story. So I just said, no, man, you can sing.
Yeah.
You should use that. You should do that. Because it's like, And then here I was a couple of years later, after auditioning for and getting a spot on the Clark Terry All-Star College Big Band, which had all these illuminaries that we know now in jazz, like guys like Conrad Herwig and Branford Marsalis and Byron Stripling, among others. And it's just, hanging out with Clark Terry this is one of the cats, and he was always one about the whole sing, play, play, sing thing.
Yeah, right.
So it was really drilled into me at that particular point. Now, just before I got that gig, I was doing stuff at North Texas, and I'm studying with the great jazz euphonium master and teacher, Rich Madison, who was another one of these cats who kind of had the voice for singing, not really, but yeah, he was cool.
Sure.
But his jazz euphonium chops were just unbelievable because he was the cat who was playing bebop on euphonium before I ever heard anyone else do it.
Sure.
Which just like was another mind blow. And then later on I find out about cats like Howard Johnson doing it on tuba.
Yeah.
And it's just, okay, wow. But CT was the cat who put the whole play what you sing what you play thing in my head. And at that point, I was getting also involved in studying about jazz vocalists, not jazz vocalists, but jazz singers.
Yeah.
One of the things from hanging out with Kyle and Polly back in San Antonio was that they're also into groups like the Singers Unlimited. Not to mention, of course, the world's greatest jazz vocal group, Lamb, Hendricks, and Ross.
Right.
So, you know, when the university started up their jazz singers back in 1979 or 1980, I was one of the first members of that group.
Wow. Okay.
So I was actually a part of the whole jazz choir thing in North Texas. And it's like a world-renowned jazz vocal study.
Yeah.
You know,
man,
phenomenal stuff. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I have, and I want to make sure not to, because I want to hear the rest of this, because I know that this next thing that I might have to say can go off on a million different kind of branches of it and such. But just the emphasis that you put on the vocalist side of things, I feel like jazz vocals is one of the most underdeveloped instruments in jazz, not in that we haven't had some of the most killing people of all time, because absolutely, I mean, there have been so many people, Eddie Jefferson, Jon Hendricks, Mark Murphy, my hero, Kurt Elling, you know, just all these people who are like absolute powerhouses of every different decade. But I feel like from a collegiate standpoint, the one that is kind of, and not necessarily for no good reason, but the one instrument that is almost viewed as expendable has been the vocalist. And I think it's because from a commercial standpoint, it's the first thing people want. And sometimes you get people who that's where the majority of the ego comes in. So certainly people in the band, you know, might not want to play with a vocalist if they're not doing all the other things that the instrumentalists are going to do, like improvise and be able to know their shit and to be able to like write and pass out arrangements, all of that stuff. You know, like if every vocalist was Veronica Swift, who wrote her own arrangements, wrote his or her own arrangements and passed that out to the band and could like scat a horn player under a table, then it'd be a very different conversation. But I feel like sometimes there is less of a responsibility that's placed on a vocalist, where it's like, all right, and this is your role, and then you sing, and then like if it's a big band, then there's going to be like a shout chorus or a solo or like a solo section, whatever, and then you come back in, you sing the head out. But then a part of the conversation, and I think you and I were talking very briefly about this the other day, about kind of what you have with some plans for Texas State, but the thing that vocalists are passing up way too much, and it is the gateway to the next level of like making vocals less expendable in the jazz setting, I believe, is Vocalese. I feel like that is like the thing that separates the men from the boys, the women from the girls. You know what I mean?
And from the chaff.
Huh?
And the wheat from the chaff.
Yeah, exactly. Because like, and not only knowing the lineage, like it just came in literally yesterday, the new, it was just released last year, the new and first biography on Jon Hendricks that Peter Jones wrote, which that is something in and of itself that is disappointing, that it took until the year 2020 to get the first biography on Jon Hendricks.
Well, you know, that's kind of funny to me, because and it is, you know, you would think that there would be more about him among others as far as jazz singers go. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that was written about the great jazz singers like Ella Fitzgerald and Sarah Vaughan.
Sure.
there's a lot of stuff that was written, and still we're finding out even more written about Nina Simone, you know, among others. Even going back now to Ma Rainey's Black Bottom or Bessie Smith, you know. There's stuff that you can find on them. But you would think that the guy who's actually considered the father of jazz vocalese would have like some tomes written on him. But the thing also is that the brother lived into his 90s. So he was still going and still creating. Someone, now that he's passed away for a few years, they're figuring that more people should know about Jon Hendricks. And yeah, I'm all into it. More people should know about Jon Hendricks and his contributions, not to mention him and his cohorts, Dave Lambert and Annie Ross, who Annie just passed away last year.
Yeah.
At 98, I believe.
Yeah. And John, not too long ago either. I mean, I should say Mr. Hendricks. But what, 2015, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's been 6 years now. It's 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you know John at all?
Oh man, I performed with him.
Oh shit.
Okay, here we go. Here's the next round of stories.
This is it.
Back in the 2000s, I'm hanging out in San Antonio and I'm working, and you know, having played gigs and worked with Kyle and Polly and done stuff. We were playing at Jim Cullum's Landing.
Yeah.
Back in the day, this was around maybe 2004, 2005 or so, where I'd be doing the gigs on the patio out there at the Landing, and I'm down on the San Antonio Riverwalk. It was like one of the hot traditional jazz clubs and one of the hottest in the country. So I'm doing this hit out there and I'm working with these guys, and this one like cat looks like kind of a beach bum shows up and wants to maybe sit in on drums and such. And then he sits in on drums, and I'm thinking I'm listening to the Second Coming of Billy Cobham, and it's Jerry Gibbs. Jerry Gibbs and I hung out after that time. We've been friends for well over 15 years, 16 years now. And he's a quirky, hilarious, creative, just beautiful cat. Totally beautiful cat, who happens to be one of the greatest jazz drummers in the world, who has this incredible jazz history because his father was Terry Gibbs, the jazz vibraphonist, who was legendary not only in the West Coast but all over the world as the jazz vibraphone cat. Won the Downbeat Awards, won like readers polls, critics polls, you know, best jazz vibraphonist, did multiple albums, played with a ton of cats early in the West Coast scene, and just legendary. So I'm hanging out with his son. Well, Jerry, at one point, he's living in San Antonio now. He'd gotten out of New York and such, and he was hanging out there. He had actually gone through some things there where I think his first wife actually died tragically, and he was in partial recovery with that, and he met this fantastic woman who was actually moving down to San Antonio from the East Coast job that she had. She wanted to open her own place. So Jerry came along, and that's how I got to meet him. But Jerry, in turn, brings his dad's big band book with him and puts together the Jerry Gibbs Thrasher Big Band, which there's a recording that's out there now. I don't know if it's still available on like any of the streaming services, but Jerry Gibbs Thrasher Big Band. Thrasher spelled Thrasher.
Yeah.
And once you hear Jerry play, you understand why that nickname is appropriate.
Yeah.
Literally, it's like Billy Cobham and Elvin Jones, you know, had a kid.
Yeah.
And, oh my God, he's white and blue eyes. and he plays like this. It's like,
yeah.
it's you know. But and Jerry, I mean, he put together this big band of some of the best players from both San Antonio and Austin. And we played tunes out of his dad's book, as well as tunes that he himself wrote, and worked with the great jazz trumpeter here out of South Texas, living, I think he's down in Buda now, Adrian Ruiz.
Yeah.
I knew Adrian back when he was like in high school, man. He was doing undergrad study at UTSA.
Yeah.
And then from there, I saw him going to get his master's degree, and then later on, he did his doctorate at UT Austin. I love Adrian dearly. In fact, he asked me about this a while back because he knew that I was playing regularly with the Dizzy Gillespie All-Star Band up in New York, and of which the great jazz trumpeter Claudio Roditi was a member. Claudio passed away about a year ago.
Yeah.
And that's still a tough one to take because what an incredible history and legacy he had, not only in taking the music of Brazil and being inspired by Dizzy and among others and playing bebop.
Yeah.
I mean, just another prodigy of a musician,
Yeah.
phenomenal. But anyway, Adrian was interested in trying to get. He wanted to talk to Claudio's widow because he's really into Claudio Roditi and he wanted to do a book of his transcriptions and publish it. So I was able to hook him up and connect him with my dear friend John Lee, who's the director of the Dizzy Gillespie All-Star Big Band and the Dizzy Gillespie Enterprise and such, and was Dizzy's bass player and personal friend for many years. So we're able to make the arrangements, and it looks like now Adrian, through permission of Claudio's widow, is able to go ahead and publish the book.
Wow. Wow.
We're going to be seeing stuff coming out. So Adrian is just like, he was working with Jerry, and he actually helped Jerry take Jerry's ideas on music and help write them down and sketched out some killer big band charts. And the band was just ridiculous. I mean, if you ever check out this recording of it, we did some of these things like a version of some skunk funk by the Brecker Brothers with.
Yeah.
That's just stupid. Just stupid. The stupid grid.
Yeah. No. Sure. Yeah.
But it was just it's some wild shit, man. It's amazing doing the music with this kind of level of influence behind it. It's like Brecker Brothers meets Weather Report meets Sun Ra.
Yeah.
Meets the Thrasher.
Yeah. So where did Jon come into play with that?
Jon
Hendricks.
Oh yeah. So Jerry makes the arrangements for the big band to perform, and he brings his dad in the early 2000s to perform with us. But not only him, but he turned this into, it was so weird. It was just like this meeting of giants.
Yeah.
So we got the Thrasher Big Band performing with the legendary Terry Gibbs on vibraphone. Jon Hendricks comes in to sing and perform with the band. Clark Terry comes in to sing and perform with the band. And then, as much as I love Clark and see him as a musical father, the one cat who I wish I would have been able to just sit at the feet of for decades, as it was just an honor to meet him, James Moody.
Oh man, this was the thing in Temple, right?
No, this was in San Antonio.
Oh, well, okay. Was Adrian in the trumpet section for this?
Adrian's in the trumpet section for this.
Dude, this is
San Antonio.
For people who are frequent listeners to this show, this is a full circle moment because Adrian did like episode 10 or 11, and in the corner of the shot on his shelf, he had a picture, and it was a big band thing, and I was like, I asked about his playing with Jon Hendricks because it was on his site, and he pulled the picture over and said Clark Terry, James Moody, Jon Hendricks, and then Jerry Gibbs, and showed me that picture. So wow, this is amazing. Hearing like how it all connects, dude.
Yeah,
whoa.
It's kind of cool. It's kind of cool, right? And I still keep up with Jerry and such. I think he might, once things clear up, he'll probably want to come back to San Antonio again and visit.
Yeah.
And hang, because he loves San Antonio. It's like every time he comes down, it's like he and Adrian would hang out and just yak up and crack up, and then find like the best Tex-Mex places they could go to.
Yeah. Right.
I was hanging out with Jerry and his fantastic wife Keisha up in New York a few times, and we would do some gigs together. So we got to play over at we did a few things. We didn't do as much as time would have allotted.
Yeah.
But the thing is that when you're up there, man, there's so many cats and there's so much stuff going on, and you're just trying to at first get a grasp and then hang on and then finally learn how to be able to run.
Right.
And after like 8 years up there, I was running.
Yeah.
I'm playing with the Mingus Band. I'm playing with the Basie Band. I'm playing with the Vanguard Jazz Orchestra. I'm playing with the Birdland Big Band every Friday.
Yeah.
Over a 2-year period. I was playing with just the Jimmy Heath Big Band, the Dizzy Gillespie, and like I said, all these bands, the Harlem Renaissance Orchestra, which was like a band that's been going in existence for about some 35 years. One of the oldest groups in the history of jazz in Harlem, the Harlem Blues and Jazz Band, which has been going for over 50 years now. And I'm a member in all these bands, and then I'm doing Broadway work, subbing on like two, sometimes three different shows in the
Yeah.
span of a month or a week,
Yeah. Right.
depending on when the sub call would come in. And and then of course playing with the New York Repertory Orchestra, playing with chamber brass groups, playing with quintets, all these ensembles, and then singing occasionally, doing like a piano duo gig where I'm coming in singing and with a pianist and playing trombone. You know,
Where would you be doing those gigs at? Were those just like steakhouse type things, bistro type?
well, this one particular place that we played that I did a little duo gig at, the one I remember the best was called Luca's Jazz Corner. It was this gentleman named Luca Marcato
Got it.
who put this little gig together, and he had this little setup and this phenomenal Italian restaurant where he had a bunch of his mom's old recipes from Italy that were
Oh,
just
whoa.
killing food. But he would have like John and Bucky Pizzarelli come in and perform. Or
Yeah.
the great guitarist Ed Lowe would come in and perform there. Or Gene Bertoncini, who's another phenomenon in the history of the music. And then, of course, cats who are here in Austin now, like Mike Sailors. Mike would be performing over there at Lucas Jazz Corner. Um, I was working there with a dear friend of mine who's from out of Houston named Roger Lint, who's a
Mm.
great jazz trumpeter and pianist.
Mm.
I mean, like sick, wonderful jazz chops. Great.
Yeah.
He recently released his new classical album as
Whoa.
well as a pianist, and yet he's a phenomenal trumpeter because the guy can swing, he can play the big band stuff, and then he turns around and he plays quintet repertoire.
Yeah.
You know, it's just these are cats who I'm hanging out with because these are guys who are like, oh yeah, yeah, we're peers, baby. Let's hang out.
Yeah. Man, did you know Ross Margitza when he was here?
I met Ross and I
Yeah.
knew of him, but we really never got to hang out that much.
For sure. Man, Ross was just incredible. I mean, he's out in LA now. He has
Yeah.
a kid and a wife. And, but man, I remember I would do these gigs with him. And at that point, I was as green as they come, man, when I was playing with him. But, you know, he would just be killing in town playing piano on all these different hits because that's what he was doing at UT, getting his doctorate. And then he would post this video where he'd be like, ugh, like haven't picked up my horn, like trumpet, haven't picked up my horn in a little bit, like super rusty, got to dust off, you know, my chops, and then would like smoke like most trumpet players in town. Like, and that's not to say anything bad about any of the trumpet players in town, just had wild chops that it was like, it's unfair. It was like unfair. Yeah,
Well, if you're looking at it from a fairness standpoint, imagine the guys who would be playing and doing these things in a jam session where they're considered the top cats, and then you got a cat like Charlie Parker walk into the session.
sure, sure.
You know, it's just another level.
Right.
You know, yeah, you could sit back and go, oh my gosh, it's another level, but no, it's just another level.
Yeah,
We all still tend to go ahead and have to stop playing at one time because we're still breathing.
right. Yeah,
We still have to go to the bathroom. We get hungry, we eat. We're thirsty, we drink. You know,
yeah,
commonality, shared experience.
right.
So you know, I mean, I've had cats who at times I sat back and like watched them play circles around me, and they were like 10 years younger, and I'm going, oh, this just doesn't seem fair. But then it's like, wait a minute, fair schmear. Just get your act together and deal
Right.
with that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I instead of taking the whole you're better than me, you know, it's more like, man, you sound good. You want to play some? Oh, you want to hang out? Yeah, sure.
For sure. That's what I would try to do. And Damien and I even had a conversation about this a couple episodes ago because he and I were talking about the tendency for people to want to hire all the best cats on a gig, right? All these people who are like, who we individually might consider to be way better than us. And that somehow will make the gig like super killing, right? And certainly it's good. Like I told him, I was like, yeah, I would do that a lot, and I still like to do that where I'm like the not to invalidate myself, but like I'm like the fraud on the stage. Like I want to be the least. Not the least deserving of the stage, because that's like some negative energy, but I want to be the person who has the most to learn from the people. That's the way that I should phrase it. The most to learn, because I want to pick up on everything that everyone's doing and be able to like absorb that and hear these things of like, oh, I never would have thought to, you know, scat that line or play that line, whatever.
Yeah.
But then we were also talking about how that can sometimes also be this other thing where you think the gig is just automatically going to be the best because you get the best cats in town, when it's not necessarily that, because you have to make sure you have people that gel together, musically speaking, not just from a personality standpoint. They kind of went a little bit on a tangent a little bit, but yeah.
I'm enjoying your tangents.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. I try to be more cognizant of them lately and go, you know what? I'll stop here and then I'll regroup.
This is called the advent of wisdom. Either that or you realize that you're drinking a really good whiskey. It's like
that too.
Okay.
Yeah,
no,
right.
let's make sure I still okay. A B C D E F G.
Right.
Yeah, you dig. I got you, man. I got you. So you know, I used to have thoughts like that, and there were still moments in my life as soon or as close by as about maybe 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, where I would have thoughts like that occasionally. But I was up in New York, and I'm hanging out with cats who were just like hearing these young cats who were coming up and just roaring away out of places like Manhattan School of Music or NYU or Juilliard. You know, I mean, it's just like, yeah, you can either go ahead and take it for what it's worth and realize that there's shared experiences that we all should have and that you can learn from these people. You can learn from anyone. It's not necessarily about going over and figuring that I'm like 57, 58 years old and this young 18-year-old's playing, hey, by the way, kid, do you teach lessons?
Yeah, right.
Man, it's like, I don't go to him. I go hang out with his teacher.
Right. Yeah.
That's the cats.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it's not, to me, it's like, it's one of the things I like in the particular now, even though I haven't had a chance to hang out with the guys so much, but it's knowing the guys over at Texas State and the jazz faculty there. I mean, you got Utah Hamrick, who's like a working bassist, and he's just killing. He's also a fine composer, and he plays sousaphone.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he's a brilliant musician, and he's a cool cat. But we haven't had a chance to get any hang time in because of the virus, because of the way things are going. But we got him over there. You got Russell Haight, who's a phenomenal saxophonist. You know, you got Brian Pardo, who's a great jazz guitarist, composer, educator. Hank Hemsoth, award-winning pianist, composer. And of course, man of rhythm, man of time and space, Butch Miles.
Yeah.
Count Basie's drummer for 35 to 40 years. It seems like. But the thing is that these are all guys who, when we have shared experiences, and they say, man, you should hear this cat who I was teaching back about 5 or 6 years ago. And the cat comes up and he's like, yeah, man, I studied with Butch, you know. And it's like, oh, that's great. You're playing with Snarky Puppy now. Congratulations.
Right.
Or, pick a group. Pardon me. And to me, it's like, these are the cats who I'm looking at now as my peers. Yeah. I've known some of these cats in Austin, like, of course, one of my dearest friends in the world, Mike Mordecai. Everyone knows as Mr. Music in Austin. Well, I know Mike not only as Mr. Music, but I also know him as a dear and close friend, as well as just a phenomenal tenor trombonist.
Yeah.
You know, he's got like just world-class chops, man, to go with just being a world-class cat.
Yeah.
Or his wife, Laura, who's like not only an active working partner in the BBA business and such, but is also an outstanding musician and percussionist in her right. You know, or their son Robin, who's my like unofficial nephew who I had to slap around and show him how to do music theory. But Robin's an outstanding bassist, guitarist, drummer, singer, songwriter. You know, I mean, it's like, and then of course the other cats. You know, John Blondell. You know. Oh my gosh.
John Mills.
John Mills. Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, these are my cats. These are the peeps, and the peeps who come after them, those are my peeps too. The peeps who came before them, of course, like legends like Dr. James Polk. Yep. You know, it's just, you know. Yeah. I mean, those are my peeps, man. Those are the cats who I grew up with. We're that group now.
Yeah.
You know,
Man,
whereas before when like Polk was playing with Ray Charles,
mm,
Polk was the cat who was like you, and Ray Charles was the cat.
yeah.
You know, but you know, we take our experiences as we get them, and we find shared existence.
Mm,
And the commonality of the fact is that we love music, we still appreciate music, we're still learning music, we're still growing from music, and we are now teaching that music
yeah.
to help the O's who want to learn it,
One of the
who
things
want to take it.
one of the things, man, that I think you exude and just in the most inspiring way is appreciation, acknowledgement, and discipleship of the lineage. And not only that, but man, the more that I hear you talk, the more that I just feel this really reverent feeling of mindfulness, just of everything around you, both of the gigs that you play with, the people who you play with, the music that you're creating, all of these things. And that's something that I've been trying to, like, you know, not to put any kind of labels on it or anything like that, but trying to acknowledge more just in a day-to-day setting, especially now, like we're in a place where a lot of the identity of musicians has been kind of stripped away. Not our identity has been stripped away, but the activity of making music
Yeah.
largely, to the extent, has been stripped away.
Well,
It makes us kind of feel.
yeah,
Sorry,
for
go
a
ahead.
lot of us, that's a large part of our identity.
Exactly.
Active
And
live performance, live concerts, it's interaction,
right.
communicating with your listeners, communicating with your audience, communicating with people,
Yeah.
being able to equate the shared experience through song,
Mm,
through whether instrumentally or vocally, through melody,
mm,
through harmony, through rhythm, through form and function.
mm.
And that's been one of the toughest things for all of us in the music biz, because I mean, you know, I had tours lined up just like a lot of other cats who were in New York who all of a sudden like no more touring.
Right. Yeah.
You know, no, sorry, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And then you know, you have to adjust to a different reality, an
Mm,
altered reality, and it's not your own doing. It's just life on planet Earth.
right.
It's not like these things haven't happened before. The last time we had a pandemic was 100 years ago,
Yeah.
but we still had it.
Right.
And there were things before then. But now we seem like we have more, even more of the understanding of the technology to be able to counteract
Mm,
the effects of these things. And it's amazing to me still to this day just how fast some of these pharmaceutical companies came up with a vaccine.
right.
They did it in
Right.
9 months.
Right.
They did it
Yeah.
in 9 months. The last time something like this was done, it was like took 5 years.
Right.
They did it in 9 months, and under the level of stress and duress, they pulled it off. And now we actually have even more companies doing more vaccines and such. The main thing now is to be able to get needles in arms and get more people to understand the importance of just. Still, while we're trying to go ahead and get this done, we still have to be very, very careful about it, because there's now mutations of the virus that spread even faster than the original.
Yeah. Right.
And you know, that doesn't make our life any easier, but at least I feel like now we've got some people who have a grasp of how they're attacking this from a national standpoint,
Mm.
not just leaving the states to try and figure it out. And
This,
because of that, we might be able to actually see full-blown live concerts in this country again. I mean, actual full-blown live concerts by the summer.
mm,
That could be a reality, but everybody's got to be able to get the vaccine, and everybody then has to be able to be willing and get inoculated.
yeah. Yeah.
Because I
Right.
mean, you know, we're approaching 500,000 deaths from this thing, and you know, not only that, but just about the death of live music.
Right.
You know, I mean,
And venues, for that matter, too.
yeah. I mean, you know, um, I've got dear friends who are members of the San Antonio Symphony who have been performing with the orchestra for 20, 30 years
Mm,
or longer. And this is the longest break they've ever had, longest hiatus. They're just starting to actually do uh, safe concerts again
yeah.
in the hall down in San Antonio after 11 months.
Right.
You know, you had other orchestras, some of the majors like New York, Chicago, LA, among others, who were still doing things along the lines, but they were doing them under a smaller capacity. I mean, even
Sure.
the Houston Symphony took about 7 months off before they got back to things again,
Right.
or 6 months off, because everybody had to establish how to be able to deal with the protocols and to be able to make sure that you could still do this in a safe environment. And
Sure.
they still don't have like maybe a tenth, sometimes a 20th of the capacity that they would normally have.
Yeah. Right.
But you know, once again, the other thing too is that because of live streams and now how much more accessible they have become, a lot more people are using them.
Mm.
But I have a feeling that when things do get better and we get back to maybe by around uh, the end of this year, where
Mm.
we can actually do live concerts and everything with much more freedom of movement like we had before, um, I think the whole live music thing is going to come roaring back.
Oh yeah. Me and
People are dying for not only normalcy, but to be able to be a part of the music again.
Yeah, well, me and Mike Sailors were talking about that a few months ago. We were talking about a few different ideas that we had for when
Yeah.
things go back to normal, and we were talking about how we just think it's going to explode because I think if nothing else, the pandemic has shown us the need for community and the need for like fellowship, even on as like anonymous a level as 60 people in a room listening to a concert who maybe maybe the majority of the people in that room never talk to another table, but they are, and I feel like we can cue everyone listening to together because they have a shared experience. Right, exactly, because yeah. And that's that, and then it fades out into the
Yeah, there you go.
no, but yeah,
Or these days you sample it and then you go ahead and put all sorts of extra effects on it, and then next thing you know you've got a hip hop song that sells over like 10 million views on TikTok, among other things, and everybody goes crazy. And then they say, "Hey man, can you do that same thing again?" It's like, "Oh, I want to do something else. I'm a creative." No, dude, this sold money, so do this again. How many versions of the Avengers do you want to see? There's a hell of a lot of Marvel comic books out.
I wish I was hip to the TikTok thing, man. My girlfriend watches them and she shows me some, and I just feel like I'm aged out almost of that
Oh,
stuff.
dude, I'm checking these out and seeing that as between TikTok and Twitch, and a couple of other apps as well. You know, it gives you an opportunity to be able to do something creative and to be able to post that
Oh,
creativity
sure.
throughout. And, you know, if I've got some dear friends of mine who have this incredible group out of Houston called the Best Little Klezmer Band in Texas. We're using a cappella to go ahead and do this next big project for
Oh, cool.
the upcoming Jewish holiday Purim.
Okay, cool.
So we're gonna be doing like some klezmer music, but the guys who are putting this together have already recorded the 3 sections of it, and it's gonna be a total of around like 8 to 10 minutes for
Yeah.
each section of 3 sections.
Sure.
Because you can only record up to 10 minutes worth of stuff on the app on acapella.
Sure.
So it's like, okay, cool. So I'm gonna be laying down my parts here in the next day or two, throwing some horrors and have a good time with it. But these are guys too who are we're all around the same age in our late 50s, early 60s and such, and we're all going, man, if you're a creative, you're a creative.
Yeah, right.
And if you see opportunities to be able to utilize that creativity and to be able to get your sound out there to the people, then do it.
Yeah.
Do it. Until we can get to doing live concerts again. And even then, with the live concerts, you should be also able to go ahead and incorporate some sort of legal writing, or at least contracts, to where you can maintain the rights of your music and protect them. Because that's another issue that we could easily get into, but that's another rabbit hole that would take a long time.
Sure.
And that is protecting the musician's rights.
Right.
The new album coming out, one of the things I'm excited about, but one of the things I'm dreading is that I'm probably going to put it on Apple Music and Spotify.
Yeah.
Am I going to make any money from that? Not much.
Mm.
But if I set up my own shop, which I'm doing now actually, just putting the website, redoing the website and setting that up so I can sell from my webpage.
Yeah.
You know.
Well,
And
Well,
maybe
man,
put together some merch with it, some T-shirts, get a coffee mug. Hey, it's the Trom-vocalist coffee mug. I can sing the trombone. Watch, Mom.
oh, you have to sign me up. I mean, I would buy a Trom-vocalist. Trom-vocalist, is that correct?
Trom-vocalist.
Trom-vocalist. I would buy that coffee mug. Man, I would buy that what is it called? Mouse pad?
Mouse
Any
pad.
day of the week, baby.
Yeah, speaking of, this is my mouse pad.
Oh, I love it.
That backwards. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a little Alice in Wonderland thing. So it's like, yeah, that's I can dig it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, man, too, this is, I guess, more of a logistic thing I'll tell you later about, but man, like, and I'm sure you're hip to this already too, but the Bandcamp thing is really great.
Bandcamp is actually really good, and I looked at that as one of the avenues and one of the options of being able to go ahead and release my material because you actually get more control of it as an artist.
Yeah.
With this first project, I'm probably not going to go through Bandcamp on it because I've spent some time now trying to put this thing together. I could still release it that way.
Sure.
My bigger thing right now is actually I just got a call from a promoter and working with a publicist and getting the stuff out there on radio worldwide as well as maybe getting a magazine cover or two out of it. Because the thing is that the album is like 10 tunes total, but I'm singing on 5 of them.
Okay.
And
What tunes are you hitting?
It's well, here's the deal. The album is mostly swing. It's got some ballads on it. The vocals on there are, of course, the Jon Hendricks "Give Me That Wine." Also, I do a version of My Foolish Heart. The version I did on Love for Sale, which is one that I got from an idea for my big band. It's actually kind of cool because it's like if Cole Porter walked into a bar and here's James Brown with the Brecker Brothers horn section behind him.
Okay.
And he decides that I can use this to write a song. So that one's kind of got that funk groove thing on it, and then in the middle of it, a bebop bridge.
Yeah.
And let's see, what else? Oh my gosh. I'm spacing out on how many tunes I've got.
No, you're good, man. When does the record release?
At this point right now, I'm saying by the spring because I'm still just finishing up some stuff on it.
Cool.
But I really feel like if I can get this thing out right now by at the latest April, at the earliest next month, but it'll probably be more like April.
Okay.
I can look at this by mid-spring. Ooh, an Easter release. It'll be like bunny hopping and shit.
Woo!
Yeah, so that could actually work out pretty well. Hold on just a second. I do My Foolish Heart, of course. I mentioned Love for Sale already. Give Me That Wine. Another great tune. It's written by Mary Lou Williams, the great pianist composer as well. That she wrote for Dizzy Gillespie and his big band with vocals on it. It's called In the Land of Oobla-Dee.
Okay.
It's a fairy tale. It's a fairy tale, a bebop fairy tale, if you will.
Woo! That's right up my alley.
Yeah, it's like the opening lines on it is like, I met a beautiful princess in the land of Oobla-Dee, spididoodlee. She said, I diddly la oobly, meaning you appeal to me. La see blue. There is nothing in this land I'd rather do than to go on off with thee in Oobla-Dee. So it uses like that altered fourth, the augmented. So you got that the augmented triad happening. It's just hip. It's a cool little story, and the cats who have got on the album are all just world class, beautiful people, phenomenal musicians. The guy who plays trumpet on Oobla-Dee is a bandmate of mine with the Dizzy Gillespie All-Star Big Band, but he's also world renowned as one of the finest jazz trumpeters to come out of the East Coast. His name's Freddie Hendricks.
Oh, cool.
John Lee, who directs the whole Dizzy Gillespie enterprise and such, is my producer on this album, and he also plays bass on most of the cuts.
Okay.
My good friend and partner, Rebecca Patterson, is contributed 2 tunes to it and is playing as well on it on a couple of instrumentals that she wrote called Blues for Rebecca Bass Bone and Spring in Bennett Park, which is this park up in Fort Washington.
Okay.
around Fort Washington, up in Washington Heights area of New York, up in Manhattan. Um, so it's got a bunch of really cool tunes on it, and I'm just really thrilled because just from talking to some of the guys who are looking to promote the album and to work with me on it, everybody says the thing is that it's got one of these. This album has a feel to it that you hear the history, you hear some groove, you hear the swing, you hear the style, you hear the sensitivity and the elements of the vocals, you hear the heart, and there's about four tunes that each could just come off as a single that
Yeah.
would do pretty well.
Yeah.
So I'll take that. I'll take that if it allows me the means of being able to go ahead and promote my music further and to so I can write more music and then perform more music.
Yeah.
You know, I'm very excited about this one. It's some of my best stuff to date, not only as a creative, but as a improvising musician. It's
Yeah.
it's fun. It's a fun album, and it's got stuff in it that even for the cats who are like, the serious heads in music, it's like, okay, here's a tune I wrote in there called "Riding the Train." Train spelled Trane.
Yeah.
And part of it is like dealing with the MTA subway system in New York. But the other part of it goes back to the fact that John Coltrane's been one of my favorite jazz artists and musicians and influences for the last 40 years.
Yeah.
So I wrote something with him in mind.
Uh,
And it's kind of cool because, we get into it. We get into it on that one. It's strong stuff. If anything, on that particular cut, I play what's known as a saxophone, which is playing a trombone like a saxophonist.
okay.
A saxophonist trying to play a trombone, but think
Yeah.
about it. Yeah, you dig.
Ah.
Yeah, so saxophoning. That's like I tell some of my students this from last week for Jam of the Week. This little page is a page on Facebook that's run by a great trumpeter, a cat who's a trumpeter with Jill Scott. His name's
Okay.
Farnell Newton. Farnell put together this concept of having a Facebook page where cats could go ahead and, according to the moderator, play a tune that is
Yeah.
suggested by the moderator. And it's a jazz tune for the most part. You can actually do transcriptions one week.
Yeah.
You could do compositions one week. You could do a standard tune. You could do blues. You could do jazz fusion. You could do
Mm.
songs by Duke Ellington, or Sonny Rollins, or Dizzy, or
Yeah.
Charlie Parker, or among others. You know, so we've got all these different things that Farnell throws out, and I'm actually one of the admins
So cool.
page as well. So sometimes I see people who come in, and they're like, "Oh, this is what I'm playing, and I've been working on this and that," and it's like, that's wonderful, except it's not the song of the week, and it's not a song by the artist of the week.
Right.
So next time, please do something by the artist of the week. But
Sure.
I want my music to be heard. Well, if you want your music to be heard, follow the rules of the page.
Sure.
You know,
And wait your turn because it'll come around. Probably it will most likely come around.
and it will, and it will. But once again, people are people, and they're going to do what they do, whether how patiently or impatiently. Or it's like, I must be heard, or I don't know if I could do this. For some people, they go onto the site and they just want us checking things out
Yeah.
because they may not know what jazz is about, and they use that as a means of being able to kind of get an understanding.
Yeah.
Which leads back to the whole thing again, once again, with learning the language. You listen to it.
Right.
You listen to it. So, and there are some cats who come on there who are experienced players who actually have the wacky concepts of, like, the balto players are the ones that kill me. Balto meaning alto saxophone with a baritone with a bari sax mouthpiece on it.
Okay. Yeah.
That's a balto.
Okay.
Okay, and then some of that shit is just so whack. It's so out, man. It's like, you guys are trying to go to the school of Dolphy and Albert Ayler here, and all you're doing is like honking like horny geese sometimes. But if you put the right meme or no graphic to it, it's hip.
Right. Hot takes with Ron Wilkins.
Yeah.
Oh man, I love it.
Yeah, man. So watch out for me on my TikTok channel, where I'll be doing some alto trombone mouthpiece on a contrabass trombone or something. I'll call it like, calto bass, or I don't know what the fuck.
Oh man, man, I love it.
Yeah,
Man.
I mean, this is fun. This is fun. I've really enjoyed this time too. This is cool.
Dude, it's so fun, man. Ron, it is so great to be getting to know you. I'm just so excited. Every time I get to talk to you, it makes me just so excited. I want to ask a couple quick questions as like some wrap up things. One, if you had a record or two or three, whatever you want, that you would say like, man, this is an essential record. As soon as people finish this episode, they need to pop over and listen to this record. What would you say?
Wow, jeez. That's always a fun question because it's like, okay, where do I begin?
Right.
You know,
It could just be something you're listening to this week too.
yeah, sure. I mean, for me, it's like, okay, for a lot of people who are new to jazz, who would want to come in and check out jazz and hear it from a swing standpoint, you know, I always like to start with like some of the stuff by Louis Armstrong.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, they might say, well, that's kind of old and hokey and such like that. Can I hear something more modern? Sure, sure, why not? Okay, we'll start off with "Kind of Blue" by Miles Davis.
Oh yeah, man.
You know, that's got a phenomenal selection of tunes. And a few years back on one of the downbeat polls, it was voted by everybody like the one album that they'd want to be stuck on a desert island with.
Yeah.
It's like, that's great, but you got to have a record player. Duh.
Yeah.
I got this album. I'm listening to it now. Yeah, next thing you know, you got like a volleyball there too that you like, you know, put your blood print on so you can have something to talk.
Yeah, man. Well, you can't go wrong with Bill, man.
Well, you know, the thing is that, but you know, if it's like, well, I want to hear something really poppy and swinging and such, and it's like, okay, we can do some Duke Ellington. We'll get you into that side of it. We can do some of the Kansas City version of swing. We can start off with some Count Basie. You know. I've always loved big band, but you know, it's like, I'm not sure about some of those guys. Okay, fine. Da 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 da, and the crowd goes mild. It's Glenn Miller time.
Oh man, well I can't tell you, man. My thing that whenever I'm playing with my big band, one of my big bands is I'll, you know, if I'm reading that book, I'll turn to the band and I'll just go, I'm so sorry, and they know to turn to number 14, which is in the mood, because it's like people are just tired of playing it. But
and I understand that because people were tired of playing that back in the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s.
right.
So why is it still popular?
I mean, that can go to the rabbit hole.
Because it's catchy.
Yeah.
It's a song that's got great lyrics to it, and it was done by one of the greatest big band leaders of the day, and it was handed down from generation to generation that this is the greatest song ever.
Right.
It's like, okay, you know, it's like, well, you know, there's the national anthem. Oh, 30 years ago, Whitney Houston did the national anthem. It was the best version ever. Well, what about Hendrix at Woodstock?
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
Oh, that's the best version ever. Well, what about the Mormon Tabernacle Choir singing it? Oh, that's the best version ever. How about the Morton Fish and Tackle Choir singing it? You know, everybody's got a different thing as far as how they approach it.
Yeah.
But to me, it's like tunes like that. Tunes like Sing, Sing, Sing. Tunes of the big band era. There are certain songs now, even to this day. I mean, what? This Sunday's Valentine's Day. My funny Valentine. How old is my funny Valentine? Hey, it's Christmas time again. Sleigh bells ring. Are you listening? In the lane, walking around in women's underwear. Hey. I mean, come on, man. There's some things that are out there that have just become a part of the fabric of our concept of music here in this world. You know. And yet, if you go over to other countries as well, and you check out what they're listening to in terms of their heritage, their history, their lineage, you know, you hear all these things, but there's one thing that happens once again throughout, no matter what tune or what culture or what country and such, and it is commonality. It catches your ear.
Mm.
Bobby McFerrin did this one. I love Bobby McFerrin. Talk about vocalists. Once again, Bobby did this one masterclass that I saw a clip of on YouTube, where he's over here and he's going through and he's doing these steps based upon the pentatonic scale.
Yeah.
He doesn't tell it it's a pentatonic scale. He just says, this is one of those common things. If I am over here and I step on this and I go, ah, everyone go, ah, cool. Now I go, ah, next step, ah. Everybody got that? Ah. How about this one? Ah. Ah. So if I go, ah, all of a sudden everybody went, ah.
Yeah.
They didn't go to the fourth, they went to the fifth.
Right.
Ah.
Yeah.
Pentatonic scale. Those 5 tones have got history throughout time in terms of music. Ever since the first caveman was sitting there going conk, 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 oh, conk, you know. Ah. Yeah, you dig? All of a sudden, it's a pentatonic scale. My head go conk. Sound like sound.
Ron, you are the most fun. You're the most fun of the whole pandemic.
You're a blast, man. I'm enjoying this so much. I'm just this is so much fun.
Oh, it makes me so happy, man. Well, tell me this.
Yeah.
The last question I always ask is, oh man, I've had some good ones, and I'm so excited to hear. And almost I almost thought, should I even ask this one for this one, because you're a very positive person, but it's not that these are negative, but they are fun. The last question is, we all have gigs from hell where things just go crazy. Just a crazy story where things just go way up the wall. Dude, we have had everything. Yeah, I mean, you know Sparky Thompson, right? The trumpet player. Yeah.
Sparky and I have been through some gigs from hell when we were in the Air Force Band.
Yeah, well, yeah, Sparky told me like a story where he was like having a drink in between sets, and some disgruntled ex-girlfriend of the person he was having a drink with came in and pulled a gun, and he had to pull him over the bar and dodge a bunch of gunshots. Man, had just like things where like Mike Sailors was saying that the band leader comes in and last minute and the MC for this wedding and grabs the guest list and looks at it and starts reading off the bridal party and says, "Mother of the bride, deceased." Oh no, you know, like didn't realize what he said and like said that over the mic, just like crazy stuff. So of all your gigs, what stands out as like a notable?
Oh, geez, there's so many. You know, the one that's sticking in my mind, it comes to my mind first, and it's probably not the worst, but it was pretty bad. So I'm growing up and cutting my teeth in the San Antonio cumbia and polka scene, playing with some of these big band cats. And I was just doing this one gig down in the valley, playing with this bassist and singer named Felix Solis.
Okay.
Felix was a sweetheart, man. He had a heart of gold, but he was just like as wide as he was tall.
Okay.
He was a big man. But he was always very, very nice to me, and he was always very generous about, you know, appreciating my talent and giving me opportunities to play the music. And it's because of guys like him, among 2 others, Paul Elizondo, you know, who passed away recently, and Ramiro Severa. These cats would give me gigs that I learned how to play and understand about a little bit of the music and heritage of San Antonio through the North Texas meets North Mexico meets South Texas versions of music, rancheras, polkas, cumbias, you know.
Yeah.
So I'd be playing these gigs. I'm doing this one gig with Felix down in like I can't remember the Rio Grande Valley where it was, but it's a wedding gig, and we got through playing the song, you know. We did the song for the bride and groom coming in. We did this big cumbia thing where everybody's in the circle and dancing, and it's just huge party. It had to be around at least about 1,000 people or so.
Yeah.
Well, at one point, we're acknowledging the bride and the groom and such, and wondering if any of the family members like to say something. And the dad gets up, pulls out a .45, fires a couple of rounds in the air, and says, "No one's good enough to marry my daughter, you pendejo!" He's talking to the groom, right? And the whole band just went, "We're up." grabbed our shit, threw it in the wheels, got the fuck out of there. And the thing that got me was that I was in such a hurry. This is the screw up. I was in such a hurry that I grabbed my horn, I put my bell in there, and I forgot to put my slide in the case. So I left my slide in the back of the truck, unprotected. And it survived. It looked like this, like the next day or two when I went back to go and pick it up. But it was like, if you ever had a moment where the blood drains from your face, and
Yeah.
speaking strictly as a man, your balls end up in your lower intestine.
Sure.
It's like one of those where it's like, you fired up. Then by the time that second round was done, my mouthpiece was off that horn. I was throwing it in my face. I'm grabbing shit and I'm going, I'm the fuck out of here. And I don't know if they continue the wedding or not. I've never seen a band pack up that fast. We were out of there in it felt like a minute. It was maybe 5.
Oh
It's
my.
like a 17-piece band, and within 5 minutes, we're gone.
Oh my God. Oh
And
my.
the thing was that the drag for Felix was that he still had to go back to the family and say, "You owe us money for this."
Money, right?
Sign the contract. And I don't know if we ever got. I don't think we ever got paid. I think Felix just kind of said he got half of it back. But I think what happened was they weren't going to give him any money because it's that family's a mess.
Sure.
So I think he paid his in part out of his pocket.
Ooh.
That's like one of those where it's like, no.
We'll put up with a lot of shit on the gig, but
Yeah, but
as soon as the shots start firing, we're out.
like Father of the Bride says, not my daughter.
Yeah.
Hell no. I mean, he just like, I was like, woo. Yeah, I mean, there wasn't a dry seat left in the house by the time we were done.
Right. Jesus, wow.
Yeah, so that's a gig from hell story. I mean,
Well-
aside from that, it was okay, and it would have turned out all right if everybody would have been cool. But Daddy was not one to give up his little girl,
Right.
so it's like, oh hell no.
Well, man, I think a tradition that's going to be started is every year I for the Christmas holiday special I do Christmas and holiday gigs from hell. So I have a feeling I'll be asking you back on for that one for.
Oh, jeez. Oh, the holidays are some of the worst.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh. Certain Easter brunches that I have done, Easter brunches,
Okay.
were like just stupid. It's like, oh my God, you're walking in here with that thing. What is that? It's a saxophone? We can't have that in here. It's going to be too loud.
Oh man, I can't
And
tell you.
then, and no matter how soft you play, they make your night miserable.
Yeah.
Because, or your day miserable, because everybody's there, and including my mom and some family members, and the guy was just the manager. I mean, the manager was just a dick.
Yeah.
He was just, for lack of a better term, he just, there's no way that a brass instrument could actually blend in with what we do here in this fine establishment, especially at Easter.
Oh my God.
And I'm sitting thinking, I got your Easter hanging right here. Yeah, here's your Easter, and it's not, I don't want to go any further.
Yeah, if I had to go.
I'll save that for later. I haven't had that many Christmas gigs from hell, but I have had some that made me really think about how truly fortunate I was, because there are some moments where there's just like, it's just really sad.
Yeah, for sure.
Everybody tries to see this holiday coming together and everything, and this is one in particular, this past one, where it's like people weren't able to really come together. Even those ones that did, that thought they were going to come together and make it all merry and bright and everything, some of their family members are no longer here because they died from COVID.
Right? Yeah.
So, I mean, this the whole landscape has changed, but I am positive and hopeful for the future. And I plan on being around as long as I can to participate and contribute.
Yeah.
In the best way I know, and that is bringing the love and the music to everybody who's willing to give it a listen. And for those who want to learn on it, sure, come hang out, see what it's like. Let's walk in these shoes for a while, you know, hobble around a little bit, see what it feels like after a 6-hour gig standing.
Yeah.
You know.
Man, Ron Wilkins, you are wisdom and grace and everything that is good in the world, man. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But if you want real wisdom and grace, make sure you have Dr. James Polk on.
Oh yeah, man. I got to talk to him the other day.
That's the cat.
Yeah.
He's like, I mean, that's legend.
Yeah.
You know, someday when I grow up, I might be close to the level of legend.
Yeah.
But he is legend.
Yeah.
And I have nothing but the greatest and the highest respect and admiration, as well as appreciation for that brother. Not only what he's been through and what he's seen, but what he still brings. I mean, it's like living in New York and hanging out with Jimmy Heath and Claudio, and you know, cats like Harold Mabern, who just passed away this past year.
Right.
I mean, actually hanging out and just chatting with these cats, chatting them up, man, talking history, talking literature, legacy, getting a chance to sit with him on a session, playing with these cats, feeling yourself just anointed by the music.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, to me, it's like, that's the real stuff. And
that's insane.
I'm so very, very, very fortunate to have continued to follow through on my dreams.
Absolutely.
And still doing it. So I'll take it.
Yes, you are.
Cool, man.
Ron Wilkins, man.
Christian Wiggs!
I've loved
every fish sandwich, bitch! One time!
Man, my freaking favorite, man. One of my favorite episodes. Ron, man, we gotta talk more. Give me a ring.
Yeah.
Give me a shout later this week.
I'll give you a shout later this week. Let's chat up a little bit, see what else is going on, and eventually we'll get to hang out and we'll do some jamming.
Yeah, man. Sounds good.
Man. Gotta blow, dog.
Absolutely.
Bring that shit. All right. My thanks again. Take care, and let me know when this is coming out, and I'll make sure I advertise it amongst the channels.
Yeah, it's gonna come out on Thursday. This Thursday, man. So we'll plug ronwilkins.net. And then, do you have anything else you want to plug other than Trom-vocalist that's coming out soon?
Aside from that, you know, anybody who's interested in wanting to come and study at Texas State with me, or with the fine jazz faculty that we have there, or with the brass faculty that we have there, yeah, we've got auditions that are still going to be happening as of scholarship auditions are coming up on March 6th.
Great.
You know, and if you want to get in, go to our Texas State University and the music department, and there will be the appropriate links to hook you up.
Amazing. Okay. Ron Wilkins.
More to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a great night, man. Be safe.
You too. I'll see you.
Bye.
Thanks again.